In this week's episode, I'm going to answer the most important question the hobby has, which is, why do kids want Pokemon more than sports cards? And if you want to know why kids don't like sports cards anymore, then stay tuned to this episode. Cue the intro.
Sports show every Friday, hot take, where's the market, behind the scenes from the car shows to the streets. There's only one show, there's only one show I wanna watch. EDI Sports Show every Friday.
Welcome back to EDI Sports Show. This is your host, Doc, speaking, and we have a jam-packed show this week. So these are the three questions we're going to do in the hot takes. So the first one is, what's cool about sports cards? What's not cool about sports cards? And the last question, which is why kids want Pokemon more than sports cards. And later in this show, we're going to actually go over what are commons worth. That's 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s to present, as well as my collecting frustrations and your viewer comments at the end. So stay tuned for all of that. Now, if you're new to this channel and you're new to the show, we do this every single Friday. This is called the EDI Sports Show. We cover both sports and sports cards. Hit the subscribe button right now. So let's get into the first question, which is, what's cool about sports cards? So I know there's a lot of controversy about the sports card hobby and sort of like, oh my God, it's doom and gloom. There's scammers, there's scam artists, there's fake cards, but there's cool stuff about sports cards right now going on. Even though Fanatics is destroying the hobby, I did that video last week. So here's one thing that I think is really cool about sports cards today that didn't happen back in the day. So I want to make this very clear. I've been a sports card collector. I was a dealer as well for 40 years. And this did not happen back in the day. So this is a patch card. Okay, so that is Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill. That is a patch card. This is cool. This is what's cool about the hobby, that you can actually put things inside the card. I mean, it's great. It's probably the best innovation in sports cards in the world. The problem being is that many of these patches are not real patches. And what I mean by real patches, I mean game used. They have nothing to do with the actual sport. They were just manufactured to put inside a card. Now, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that overall, except for the fact that you shouldn't pay a premium for a relic. If it's manufactured, it should be called a relic, and therefore you should not pay a premium for that. I think it's a common. Like, who cares? Like, so I can make a shirt and put it in a card and then get a premium? I mean, that's called sort of, counterfeiting. I mean, it's crazy. Now, if it's a game-used, game-worn jersey, that's a different thing. That deserves a premium on that. That is a legitimate, historical thing that was in a game and now it's in a card. Again, I think it's cool, but I think we need to make those distinctions. Now, the other thing that is very cool that I love about sports cards today is that you can actually get athlete autographs on card. Now, they do this in different ways. So this one is actually, as I'm actually going to look, nope, this one is a sticker. So that player signed a sticker and they stuck it on the card. Now, that's the easiest way to do autographs for these card companies, because all they have to do is send a sticker sheet and the player just has to sign the stickers. It's better, personally, I think it's better if the player actually signs the card. But that means that you have to ship the cards and then get them back. And in the shipping process, there's going to be damage. So when you open up a pack, and again, there's called pack fresh. When you open up a pack and the card, you send it in for grading and it doesn't come back a 10 and you're wondering why, well, that's because it had to be handled by a bunch of different people. So if you get an autographed card and you send it in for grading and you actually get the card itself as a 10, it's pretty much a miracle. I mean, because it was handled by a lot of hands. Because remember, the athlete's not opening up the mail. Somebody else is opening up the mail. Somebody else is putting the cards in a stack. Somebody else is then getting the athlete's schedule together where they sit down and then physically sign it. Then they have to give it back to someone, and then they have to ship it back to the manufacturer. That's a lot of hands. So I'm just saying, in terms of the actual card integrity, it's going through a lot. But those are the two things that I think are very, very cool about sports cards today that are different than back in the day. Now, what's not cool? And this is actually a problem. And so I'm going to actually use Justin Jefferson as an example. And the reason I'm going to use Justin Jefferson as an example is because he's one of the most popular cards or athletes in sports card, the hobby. Like, everybody knows Justin Jefferson, everybody knows the Gritty, and most of his cards have a premium on it. Now, here's my point. So here is Justin Jefferson's rookie card. Okay, so I got the Optic Hollow Prism. Again, we're going to get into why this is horrible. So I got the Optic Hollow Prism graded. Okay, so that's a 9.5. Now, tell me, what's different about this and this? See? So this is a problem. Now, how many rookie cards does Justin Jefferson have? Now, this is Donruss. So here's also a Donruss Optic rookie. And here's a Chronicles. And here's a Panini rookie. And here's another rookie. And here's a season's ticket. And here's another season's ticket. And here's another rookie card. I mean, that's what's uncool about the hobby, is that if you want to get into the space, if you want to start collecting, this is just one player. How many cards? I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and there's way more that I don't even have because I just gave up. I was like, I don't even know what's going on here. Like, it's crazy. Like, and each one of these is worth a different amount. Like, why is this worth more than this one? I mean, there's no rhyme or reason to it. There's literally no rhyme or reason to it. And that's the problem, is that there is no rationality in the sports card space, and that's uncool. If you want to get kids involved, it has to be simple. Basically, there has to be sets, and then kids can collect the sets. So to be quite honest with you, these should be separated out. Like, you should have a Donruss Optic set, and that's it. So all the cards in that set are Donruss Optic. Now, I don't know why you need a hollow on that. I don't know why. There's no point to it. It's just making it more confusing and therefore making it uncool. So I don't have a problem with the Chronicle series. I don't have a problem with it, but it should be its own set. Or it should be inserts within sets. And things should start making more sense, but they don't. And that's why kids don't really like sports cards, because it makes zero sense. So you only collect the players that are the most popular. That's it. That's the only reason kids even get into sports cards today, is they collect the players that are most popular. They don't care about any other player because the manufacturers have made those cards so ridiculous. All right, so let's get to the last question, most important question. So why do kids want Pokemon more than sports cards? And the answer comes down to kids want what's cool. That's it. They just want what's cool. And Pokemon is just cooler than sports cards. Sports are on the decline. Less kids watch sports, less kids play sports, less kids care about sports in 2024 than ever before. And so you're not going to build the hobby with less kids liking sports. And since the athletes themselves are so inaccessible to kids, again, these are now, basically if you watch a baseball game or you watch a football game, it's like watching a video game at this point, because the players are so far removed from your own experience. Kids are not meeting athletes anymore. You're not going to the stadium to actually get autographs. You have zero access to sports athletes, and therefore, because of the separation, not only that, but athletes are multi-millionaires, they're brands, They're their own, like LeBron James is not on the same level as a child. And so LeBron James is so far removed from reality, like he's an entity. And so because of that, he's not accessible. You can root for him, you can like him, you can collect his cards, but it's sort of like you're not really collecting an athlete, you're collecting a brand. So I don't know about you, but I don't find it cool to collect, to like be a Pepsi fan. Like, yeah, I might collect Pepsi memorabilia or I might collect Coke memorabilia, but I don't feel it. Like, it doesn't matter to me. And that's the problem with sports now, is that it's become something else. It's no longer about athletics. It's no longer about like heroes. It's no longer about that. There's no more stories left in sports because the sports reporters don't even do that anymore. They don't write stories. They basically just write what I do in my newsletter, which is just cover the game. So, I write a newsletter for the New York Rangers and I cover every game during the season and I covered every game during the playoffs. And all I do is just go over what happened in the game. So if you missed the game, you can read my newsletter and find out, oh, that's what happened. So who scored the goals? How did they score them? What happened in the game? Was there anything interesting happening in the game? Because I go over sort of the pivotal moments within the game. So that's just game coverage. But that's not storytelling. That's not what we used to have. So back in the 20s and the 30s, reporters actually used to write stories about the athletes. Like the Babe became the Babe because of sports reporters. And Mickey Mantle's lore became a cultural icon because of reporters. Same thing with Joe DiMaggio, the Yankee Clipper. That's where these nicknames came from, because it was sports reporters that promoted the story of the game, of the athletes, that it was bigger than they were. And those days are gone. We don't have journalists anymore. We don't have storytellers. We don't have those things. And so Pokemon leads right into where kids are because it leads into that fantasy fulfillment. And to be quite honest with you, and I have a background in, human behavioral psychology and all that, when you're talking about young boys, ages 8 to about 13, they're looking to fulfill fantasy. And Pokemon feeds that need. It is a fantasy story that has been built, and so you collect the different characters and you sort of gravitate to the characters that you like. And the Pokemon series, not just the cards, but the cartoon itself, is giving that fairy tale to kids. Sports cards don't have that fairy tale anymore, and therefore kids don't care about sports cards. And that's the answer. I mean, that's really what it is. So if you're a parent and you're trying to get your kid into sports cards, you have to think about the story around why are sports cards important. So if you want your kid to collect, football cards, let's say you are a Minnesota Vikings fan and you're like, you got to collect Justin Jefferson cards because he is the modern day best player on that team. Okay, so you want to collect him. Why? And you have to have a story. So if you're a parent, go into Justin Jefferson's background, go into his story, go into how did he get to the NFL, go into his time at LSU, go into where did he come from. Because the more you retell Justin Jefferson's story, he becomes real. And once he's real, then you have a reason to collect him. And that's it. And that's what we're missing in sports cards. So, I know Michael Rubin wants the 10X the hobby. Again, he doesn't know a thing about sports cards. I don't even think he knows anything about sports. I've covered sports pretty much for 25 years. I was a sports reporter. I was a play-by-play announcer. I've been doing this my whole adult life. So I know more about sports reporting. I know about sports storytelling. And this is what I love to do. So, that's why I do the show. So that's the key right there. So hopefully that all makes sense. Now let's get to where's the market. And like I said, we're going to go over the common cards, how much they're worth, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s through present. Let's get to it. Now it's time for where's the market. All right, in this week's Where's the Market, I wanted to go over common cards from yesterday and to today. So we've got 50s, we've got 60s, we've got 70s, 80s, and present. All right, so let's do this right now, because one of the things that I see online all the time is, what are my cards worth? Now, I'm not doing stars, I'm just doing commons. So let's just make that clear. So commons. So 1950s commons. So first of all, let's just make this clear. So Bowman and Topps basically started in 51, 52. Okay, so that's when we're talking from. So 51 to 59, so 1950s commons, they're typically between $5 to $10 for a common card. So Dick Brodzinski, so that's between 5 to 10, again, depending on the condition. Jim Pierce, so this is all the 55 set, and I have a lot of 55 commons. Just have a lot because I finished a 55 set. When you finish a set, usually when you buy in bulk, you buy a lot of 55 cards to finish a set, you have a lot of extras. And so these cards are worth between $5 to $10. That's most of the 50s. So that's 51 through 59. Again, most of them are worth between $5 to $10 commons. Now 60s is a different story. So because now we're getting closer to modern times. Now they're still old. Obviously, anything that's in the 60s is over 50 years old. So these are 65s. So these are 65s. And so we're talking, 60, 61, 62. So you can kind of see the design of those. So these are all 65s. So here we go. Okay, so what are these worth common-wise? And they're worth about $5. Again, the 50s are 5 to 10, and 60s are worth around $5 each. So that's most of the 60s, so 60 through 69. Again, we're not talking stars, we're just talking commons. All right, so now, once we finish with the 60s, I'm going to put it back into the bag. Here we go. All right, now let's get to the 70s. Now, these are 73s, okay? So you know that they're 73s because they all had this little baseball player in the bottom corner. So this was a shortstop, so you can kind of see. So right here, so that's a shortstop, and this was a pitcher, so you can kind of see what a pitcher looks like. And then that was a catcher, so you could kind of see the catcher logo, or a player in a catching spot. So these are all commons. And so 70s are between $3 to $5, again, depending on condition. But we're talking about commons, not stars, commons. So for 70s cards that are common, between $3 to $5. Now let's get to 80s and to the present. So 80s, so this is the 85 set. I'm not going to open it up because I have it in a sealed bag, so I'm just going to leave it right here. So 80s commons, again, not stars. So actually I have an Eric Davis rookie card right here. So that's a star. This is the 85. This is 85 common. So I'm making this distinction, not a star, but just a common. And so the commons are worth in the 80s between $1 to $3. So I want to make that clear, between $1 to $3. So as you can see, they get lower and lower as the closer to modern times that we get. So 80s commons are between $1 to $3. Now, what about 90s through present? Okay, so first of all, 90s was the junk wax era. So millions and millions of cards were printed. Millions and millions, and there's still unopened sealed cases and boxes and complete sets. That's when complete sets started to come out. So there's millions and millions and millions, like way more cards than you could ever imagine. And so these cards are worth $1 at most. So if you see them for $1.49, just be aware that someone's trying to make a little extra money on that. Now, you can buy it for $1.49. It's not a problem. It's not like you're getting ripped off. But if you are trying to get multiple cards, my best suggestion, I said this last week, my best suggestion is go to a dealer with a dollar bin box and say, I have $10, how many cards will you give me for $10? Literally say that. And you will see how much more you can get from the dollar bin for $10. You should get at least 20 cards. The dealer's not going to give you at least 20 cards. Walk away, go to another dealer, because that's reasonable. You should be able to get 20 cards for $10. I mean, that's reasonable. If a dealer wants to give you more than that, then yeah, I mean, you should just keep going to that dealer, because that's a dealer that wants to sell cards. They are not interested in holding on to cards. They're interested in just getting cash and letting you enjoy the cards. That's a good dealer. I'll put it that way. Like if you came to me, I'd probably say 20. And if you negotiate, if it was a kid, I'd want the kid to negotiate. And if he negotiated with me, well, 25 or 30, I'd be like, yeah, all right, you can get 30 cards for $10. Because that's part of the fun of the hobby, where you can say, you know, how much can I get for 10? I say 20, and then you push back a little bit. Hey, that's fun. That's why you go to a show. So that's the commons for from basically 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s to present. Hopefully that helps. That's where's the market. Now let's get to my frustration in my collecting story. So one of the biggest frustrations that I have is that I just have too much stuff. And I think I've talked about this, you know, being a hoarder and just having too much stuff. Like I want to get rid of all of these cards. Like this is right here. This is probably a couple hundred cards just right here. You know, so I could go through them and kind of just like show you like this, like I don't want any of these cards, you know, so that's the issue. So we've got, you know, 60s, 50s, 60s, modern, 80s, 70s, you know, I mean, we're talking, okay, you know, we're talking a lot of different cards here. You know, there's a 73, there's an autograph for a lighter, you know, football. Again, just a lot of stuff. I've got basketball here, I've got hockey here, you know, I've got a lot of cards that I just don't want. Okay. More Schmitz. Okay, that's a 61. A 71. Rose. I mean, you can see, like, there's a lot of cards. So that's the issue. I just have too many cards. I don't want them all. Like I even have, you know, packs. I've got a Don Mattingly 84 pack, McGuire pack. Let me show that one to you. It's okay. An 87 McGuire rookie pack. I got another one. I got a Bo Jackson. I don't want them. That's not part of my collection. Not part of my collection. And so my frustration is, how do I get rid of stuff so that I can start to just focus on the collection that I want? Now, I showed you probably in the first week sort of the display back behind me. This is the bookcase that sits behind me. So as you can see, the Ken Griffey starting lineup. That's the Nolan Ryan starting lineup. We come down, we start to see some more. I mean, this is just a lot of cards. It's just a lot of stuff. You know, these are boxes that I'm going through. These are kind of what I want to keep. So, you know, these four are sort of where I'm starting to consolidate. This one is also a box. I got more football in there. I've got this case. So that's all. These are all keeping. So these are all part of the PC. So you got the Bo, you got a Casey Stengel. Okay, so you can kind of see. So this is a Melott. That's a 41 play ball. Again, I'm a Mets fan, so that's a game-worn Gary Carter patch. Got my Francisco Alvarez rookie card now. You know, again, these are Pete Alonso, so that's from Chrome. That's the sepia. You got a Cal Ripken rookie. Okay, you got a Mickey Mantle 60. So I'm trying to consolidate and build a PC that makes sense, something that I can kind of be able to move around with me, because you move from place to place. Like I don't own a home right now. That's the plan, is to try to own a home, and once I do, I can have a man cave and kind of do that, and I can have a PC and start to display some things, but I can't get there because I have too much stuff. So that's the frustration, is right now in the hobby, even though there's a lot of great stuff that's going on in the hobby, there's no way to sell your stuff. And that's the problem. Is yes, there's eBay, but you can't sell everything on eBay. You can sell one card at a time, and it takes too long. And yes, there's other platforms and whatnot, but it's so much work. It's just so much work. And so that's the problem, is that there's no way to really just be able to contact someone, be able to be like, look, this is what I want. This is how much it's worth. Like, can we make a deal? And then basically just get rid of stuff. And right now, that's not possible. So that's my frustration. That's behind the scenes. I figured I would tell you guys. All right, let's get to your viewer comments and close out this show. Okay, now we get to the best part of the show. This is my favorite part, which is your viewer comments. So let's take a look. I have a few this week. We're going to start with a negative one, and then we're going to end with a bunch of positive. I kind of want to do that. I like starting negative and then ending positive. So we're going to do that this week. So the first negative comment comes from I Am the Buddha. Yeah, what a name. I Am the Buddha. And this is what he said. Boo-hoo. One thing is for sure, 40 years of experience didn't toughen up your skin. So apparently I Am the Buddha has no sense of humor, none, just goes right over his head. I don't know what's wrong with you, Buddha, but you seriously need to start actually following your name. If you are the Buddha, you should be a lot more zen, buddy. You should be more zen. You should have a sense of humor and understand that the viewer comment section is all about you. It's not about me. It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter. It matters what you think. And if you're wasting comments like this, I don't know why. I don't know what you're doing. So, one, I appreciate your subscription. I appreciate the comment. Folks, you can continue to make negative comments on this channel. It's not going to bug me. So apparently, I don't know, I have much thicker skin than the Buddha does. So there you go. All right, next comment. Let's get to Bobby West, 8460. And he said, why should anyone listen to anyone, especially online? Opinions are like, you know what? We all have one and they all stink. Keep up the good work, Doc. So this was on the last short video that I did. So I put out a weekly show every single Friday. That's called EDI Sports Show. And what I decided to do was start breaking up some segments of that show and putting them throughout the week. So you actually can, if you don't watch the whole show, you can watch a segment of the show, and that just makes more sense on YouTube. So you can actually just come here, and if you only want to watch one particular segment, I'm going to put out the best stuff to break it up and to give you more content. So this was the negative stuff that was on the viewer comments from last week. Again, I thought it was a great rant. It was a rant. Literally 4 different comments from the same person, and they just went off. So if you haven't watched that, I highly recommend you watch it. But anyway, I appreciate the comment. So let's get to John Maybe 5266. This is what he said. Most of these guys should be called sports card grifters, not influencers. I enjoyed your videos and I'm subscribed. How much has your subscriber count gone up in the last year? So this is the one, are we witnessing the end or the death of YouTube sports influencers? Because views have gone down across the board. I don't know if you know that, but all the analytics on YouTube have said that views are down about 20 to 30% across YouTube because there's so many more channels now. You have so many more options that you're not funneling into one option anymore. So like sports card influencer or sports card investor, sorry, he's an influencer, but sports card investor, his views are down about 50%. So where he used to get 100,000 views, he's now getting 50,000 views on his videos. So that's just the way it is. And I actually went over which influencers have grown and which ones have kind of been stagnant. And Sports Card Investor is one of those that has been stagnant. He really hasn't grown that much. And to answer your question, I'm probably about the same. I may have like 20-30% growth. Again, depending on the video, some people decide to subscribe, some people don't. There's nothing much I can do about it. If you want sports cards and sports, talk, this is the show for you every Friday. So let's get to the last comment, and I appreciate it. This is from Jim Sholey, 4277. And this is what he said. Doc, I am very thankful for your explanations and topics. You're very well spoken. I really like a few videos ago about kids learning, and you said you want the card, but you don't need the card. That could very well apply to other things in life. Don't change anything. Thank you, Jim. Well, thank you, Jim. That's all I got to say. So, yes, that is the point. I do combine a lot of things in this channel. Like, I am a 20-year expert educator. I have worked with thousands and thousands of teenagers and kids of all ages from 4 to 21. I've worked with thousands of teachers. I'm the only educator in the United States to actually run 3 successful pilot programs, worked with 5,000 teachers, and 100,000 teachers use my professional development documents right now. It's endorsed by 1 state in the US, so there you go. I am an expert, clearly. But my point being is that I just want kids to have fun. I want parents to have a good time. I like positive parent-child relationships. I don't want toxicity. I don't want negativity. I don't want people arguing with each other, yelling at each other. I think we need to start treating each other nicer and better in the world. And sports cards is a great way to do that. In fact, sports is a great way to do that. But we just seem to have a culture, not necessarily YouTube, but just in society in general, we have a culture that just seems to be lost. And there's nothing that any one of us can do about that in the grand scheme of it, but we can control what your family and what your local community can do, and that's where you should really focus your energy. What can you do in your local community? Now, there are local card shows. If you can influence things in your local card show where you can talk to your kids and be like, what do you want and what do you need? That's a whole different story. Now, do you need a personal collection? No, but there's benefits to it. And I did a whole video on how parents can help kids learn how to be collectors. So I highly recommend you watch that if you're a parent, you have a child. But I mean, that's my point, is these are not things that you need. These are things that you want. I don't need this card, but I might want it. Now, obviously, I don't understand why you need any or why you want any modern cards, because the manufacturers made these cards basically useless. I don't understand it. Here's an Eric Davis rookie card. This is from 1985, the same year that Kirby Puckett has a rookie card. So, I mean, this is a beautiful card. The problem is, do you know how many cards they printed of this card? So this was in 85, so that was right before the major boom, but sports cards were starting to pick up. So there's probably 1 million of these cards, roughly 1 million. I don't know about you, but 1 million is not rare. So how much is this card worth? And manufacturing, the grade of a card, again, manufacturing the grade of a card. So if this is a PSA 10, should it be worth that much more than this card? And that's the point, is that the grading, the premium you're paying on grading is sort of ridiculous because it's not rare. Like, the card itself is not rare. So you're trying to put a premium on what you think is the condition of the card? Like, yes, there should be some premium on that, but how much? And so that's what the hobby has to kind of figure out. And if you want kids to stay in the hobby, then you need them to understand that you should not overspend for a PSA 10. You should not overspend for a PSA 10. I want to make that very clear because there's 1 million of these cards. So unless someone is going to go buy all the raw cards and burn them, then the PSA 10 should not be worth whatever multiple you think it is. So I don't know what a PSA 10 of this goes for, but But if it goes for anything more than $100, I think you're out of your mind. Again, what's this worth? $20, $15? You know, again, it's a star. It's not a common. Common in the 80s, we did that. You know, it's not worth that much. But a star is going to be worth a little bit more, but there's a million of those cards. So that's the show for this week. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you are not subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button. We're here every single Friday. I'm Doc Schwartz saying, have a great weekend.
There's only one show, one show. There's only one show I wanna watch. EDI Sports Show every Friday, every Friday, every Friday. From interviews and card news to the sports behind the scenes, only one show covers the deeds. EDI Sports Show. There's only one show, one show.